Hey, Hound Dogs, I'm David Hankins.
And I'm Paul Hankins.
And you're on the air with Power Squared. Tonight we have a special guest, Paige Redbird.
Hello.
Who was the colorist on 3 of our issues. Ta-da. And we thought we'd have you on the show to talk about your experience with Power Squared and what you're up to now, etc.
Oh, my cat is saying hello as well.
Oh, that's okay. What's the cat's name?
Her name is Death. It started as a joke, and then it stuck.
Okay.
So she is Death the cat.
So let's talk a little bit. Well, I guess we should mention that, we met you through doing the comic book. And this is the first time we've actually ever seen you in person.
I know. It's kind of fun.
Yeah. And you worked for us back in 2017. Seems like a long time ago now.
I know. It seems ages ago.
Yeah. How did you find out about the gig?
You guys, I think, reached out to me. I'm trying to remember how that came about. I think I had posted some of my content either on LinkedIn or one of those like online portfolio sites. And I also went to SCAD, and I think one of your previous colorists went to SCAD, and so I think probably through the inevitable SCAD grapevine, we ended up connecting somehow.
Yeah.
And you guys were my first comic gig outside of college, which was kind of fun because it was my major at SCAD, was doing comics.
Our previous colorist was Lisa Richards.
Yes, that's what it was. Lisa passed the gig along. Lisa was my roommate.
Oh, okay. So
that's what it was. Yeah, Lisa knew that and I think they go by Leo now. So Leo knew that he was leaving.
Oh, okay.
And had passed the gig along to me, knowing that I did sequential art as well. And that's how I got to meet you guys. That's great. I totally forgot that it was through them.
Right. Okay. I kind of feel like with Lisa, Leo, and you and Nina, did you know Nina Gaylord at all?
I don't know that I did, no.
Okay. And she was our colorist after you, all through
nice.
Through SCAD, and then you were helpful in finding Rachel Wells, who's our artist.
Oh, good.
And I know it because we were all sort of by issue 5. You had done a lot of, I want to say, art correction for us as time went on. And
I got to learn how to draw cars.
Yeah. And I think the 3 of us had decided that we needed a new artist, and so that's kind of, you helped us find Rachel, who's still with us. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, she's up on. We're working on issue 21 at the moment.
God, that's so amazing. That's so crazy.
Yeah. So we were your first gig after SCAD.
Yeah, I majored in sequential art, so basically any art that goes in a sequence. So not only comics, but like storyboarding and that sort of thing. And I had actually decided like my junior year that I didn't want to pursue comics, because as I'm sure you guys know, the industry is a little bit nuts.
Yeah.
It's very challenging to break into, and I was like, man, I don't know if this is what I want to do. But then you guys contacted me and it popped up, and I liked coloring and it was a good thing to practice, and so I was like, sure, why not? And I had just moved back to the West Coast and had a new apartment and just like trying to figure things out, and so it worked out really nicely. It was my first like foray into like working from home and having an art job, and it was pretty cool. I felt very special.
Oh, good. I kind of feel like
yeah, sorry.
That's okay.
She thinks it's dinner time, but she doesn't get dinner for 3 hours.
Oh, well, maybe she's hoping that she could.
Yeah, that means she's being extremely charming right now.
Because I guess Leo and you and then Nina, after they worked for us, I don't think did any more sequential art. So I don't know if we like ruined you guys.
And I'm sure that has nothing to do with you and everything to do with just the crazy nature of being a freelance creator and trying to survive. You guys were really great and supportive and paid really well, but not every freelance comic job does that, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, that makes us special. So how did you decide on going to SCAD?
Oh boy, I applied to a whole bunch of different colleges and actually got accepted to all of them, but it was really a big issue of financial aid because, none of us are made of money. And I thought I wanted to do the like liberal arts super academic thing.
Yeah.
But none of those colleges wanted to give me enough money, so I was like, screw it, I'm gonna go live on an island and make swords. And my mom was like, can you look at like art school or something? And I was like, fine. And my friend and I went and toured SCAD and totally fell in love with Savannah, and ended up going with that because they happened to give me enough funds to go. I'm really glad that I did. I made a lot of obviously really great connections, and learned a ton. Even though it's not what I'm choosing to pursue directly, what I learned there, I still utilize a ton of what I learned all the time.
So drawing comics was not a first love of yours?
It was originally. I used to love drawing a ton. I used to really, really think that comics was what I wanted to do. I actually started at SCAD as a game design major and then switched to comics because I was working in the sequential art department. And they kind of drew me in with their little sequential art clause. And I loved the major. It was more just the industry that I was really turned off by, and how just challenging it is. It's a really difficult industry. Publishing is really difficult, and there's like this huge divide between indie comics and like mainstream comics like Marvel and DC and that whole thing. And I was just like, yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's really tough. And also just like the way that some places will let you keep ownership over your art and then other places won't, and then like the payment process, like some places will just give you a stipend and then you have to survive off of that for like 2 or 3 years, and it was just like it just seemed a little not ideal. And also I spent a lot of time, I was really lucky because I worked in the sequential art department. I spent a lot of time getting to interact with and see the work of the grad students in the sequential art department, and that really gave me the taste of how much you have to draw to really get to the skill level that I wanted to be at to pursue comics. And I sat down and I went, I don't actually like drawing that much. I was like, I like it as a hobby and something that I do sometimes, but I don't want to, like, these people were amazing. They would just draw and draw and draw and practice and practice and practice. And I was finding myself trying to finish comics so that I could do other stuff. And I still liked the process, and like every once in a while my brain's like, what if you made a comic? Wouldn't that be so fun? And I'm like, you think it's fun, but just wait. I was like, there's a lot more into it. So I think it was mostly just realizing that while I loved drawing, I didn't love drawing.
Right.
And there were kind of other things that I was wanting to put my time into. But I was really glad that I got the chance to do some like coloring work with you guys. I remember the first page I colored for you guys took me like 5 hours. It took so long because I'd never like professionally colored someone else's pages. And then I think by the end of it, I was doing a page in an hour, like tops. It was cool to see that growth, because I remember doing that first page and going, oh no, what have I done? But it worked out. It worked out just fine. I was able to pick it up and learn it and gain a new skill, which has helped me a lot.
Oh, good. I spent a lot of time on your LinkedIn and trying to get a little bit, learn some stuff about you.
Yeah, I've done a couple things.
Yeah, you've done a lot of things. Before you got into SCAD, you were what was it? You're kind of, have you always sort of been into props, I guess?
Yeah. I like to say that I started getting into props making and cosplay when I was old enough to make a sword out of duct tape and a yardstick. So I've always for my entire life have liked making costumes and like cool swords and like stuff to hold on to. So that was actually what I landed on once I decided that comics was not going to be the thing that I actively pursued. Because I was like, well, what am I into besides drawing? What am I trying to spend all my time on? It was like, well, I'm staying up until 1 o'clock in the morning every night, browsing Instagram and looking at cosplayers and prop makers and like people who do this as a job. And I was like, maybe that's what I want to do. So I started taking on like prop and cosplay commissions and kind of doing that on the side, which I was still doing on the side when I was coloring for you guys. I think at one point when I was in Portland, I had like 4 jobs. And I went, I need to pare this down. But yeah, so I was doing like commissions and making stuff out of foam and going to conventions. And it was really fun, but it was also a lot of work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can imagine.
So you worked for other prop makers?
Yeah. I actually happened to meet Bill Duran, who's kind of the foam smith guy. He's the one of the big names in prop and cosplay, because I ran a convention in Savannah for 3 years, Stormcon,
Right.
which used to be a thing, and then it died, and then a friend of mine wanted to pick it back up, and I volunteered to help him as the co-director, and that was really cool. But we had grown enough, I think, by our 3rd year that we could fly somebody out as like a special guest and like put them up in a hotel. And we
Wow.
picked Bill because he was like well known in the cosplay community. And he came out and we weren't a hot mess, and we like took care of everything like we said we would, and weren't just total crazy bonkers people. And so he remembered me. And years later, in like October of, I think it was a little earlier than that, it might have been like September of like 20, I don't know, 17 or 2018, out of the blue I get a text message like, hey Paige, it's Bill Duran. And I was like, oh my god, what is happening? And he needed help. They wanted to expand their business, and he remembered that I wasn't insane and my convention was not a mess. And so I was able to start working with them. That's how I ended up, I'm in Washington now, so moved up here to help them. I worked with them for like 4 years, 4.5 years, which was super cool. Learned a lot. Worked with another small, independently owned couple prop companies, also here in Washington. And then through this weird twist of fate, I actually ended up getting laid off, because that's the nature of a small cell phone business. Sometimes you have to cut expenses, and sometimes that expense is an employee.
Right.
But it ended up working out really well, because I, instead of trying to find a real person job, quote unquote, I am now fully self-employed with my leatherworking business that I started last year, and have been for like a week and a half. It's super new, but it's been really fun, and I'm enjoying it a lot.
That was good.
So what made you get into leather? I read that you went to a lot of Renaissance fairs and that kind of things
Yes.
as a kid.
Yeah, I'm a big fantasy nerd, love Ren Fair, love Lord of the Rings, all that stuff. So I've always kind of liked the look of leather and have always wanted to learn it, but was intimidated by like, oh, but it's so expensive, and I don't know how to do it, and blah blah blah. But I'm a big forever student of YouTube University, and I've learned a lot just by kind of passively consuming a lot of YouTube content. And eventually I hit a point where, ironically, was rushing for a con, and leather turned out to be the faster option. I had some on hand. It required less work to prep and finish than foam did. So I was like, screw it, I'll just try leather. I've always wanted to. I totally winged it. I didn't really know what I was doing, and it turned out great. And I really liked working with it. It was kind of like foam, but to me it felt even easier. Like, it just made a lot of sense to me. And then I barely touched it for like a year, and then decided that I liked it so much that I was gonna just dive in and keep working with it. And I don't really understand how one became the other, to be honest with you. But somehow now I'm sitting here with like, I don't know, 5 rolls of leather in my house and a whole little studio. We're sitting in my little studio section of my apartment right now. I've been considering going downstairs and introducing myself to our downstairs neighbors, just in case it turns into a hammering nightmare. But I think I have enough padding that it's fine. But yeah, I've just always liked it, and just happened to have some, and then used it and saw enough YouTube tutorials that I was like, oh, this makes sense. And I can't stop. I'm just stuck.
So how do you get work?
It's primarily through my Instagram and word of mouth. Since I started my Instagram in like 2014, I've gained over 4,500 followers totally organically. I've never done any paid advertising or anything. And I run an Etsy page that is kind of my main source of income, where I have both handmade pieces and then also digital patterns, because I want to help people get into leatherworking. Like right now, I kind of really started actively pushing my store like last week, and I have 4 bags to make, a switch case, some custom armor pieces, and a book.
Wow.
Wow.
I don't really know how that works. Some of it's from friends, and then I post about it, and then people go, "Wow, that's cool." The other big thing that I do is, because I'm Cherokee, so I make traditional Cherokee pucker toe moccasins. So I also have kind of a niche in the indigenous community where people will be like, "Hey, I need moccasins," and then I make those too. But yeah, it's entirely organic. It's entirely word of mouth and reviews right now. I have not spent a penny on, well, except for what Etsy takes for me involuntarily for offset ads. I personally have not intentionally decided to do any paid advertising. So for now, that is what is working for me to get orders. And like when I go places, I tend to try to include leather in my costume work. So like I just made I guess it's not that recently now, last June-ish, I finished a piece that had like this whole leather corset thing and like bracers. I made my own shoes,
Wow.
which was insane. I don't know what possessed me. It was really cool, but I'm like looking back at it, I'm like, I don't know what happened. I suddenly had shoes. But I tried to make leather pieces that is part of my costumes always, so that when I go places and people go, "Wow, that's so cool," I can go, "Thanks, I made it," and like hand them my card.
Sort of walking advertisement.
Yes, exactly. And also I get to try to make lots of different stuff. Every time I try to make a costume, I'm like, where can I put leather into this? It's just so fun. And it's a unique material that not everybody uses for costuming. I think because there's it's not perceived, it's an honest financial wall, but if you slowly gather things over time, it actually becomes a lot more manageable than one thinks. But Too Long didn't read. I just really like it, and I just talk about it and post about it a lot, and people seem to be into it. That's currently how I'm getting orders. I also launched a Patreon last week, so I have a few people in there so far.
Do they get leather goods if they?
They get first access to commission slots. So I think I haven't fully worked it out, but I think I'll probably do like 1 or 2 commissions per month. But they get access first. If someone that is a patron wants a commission, they will get first access. But if nobody there wants one, then I open up to the greater internet at large. Right. But they also get like pictures of my cats. I do monthly articles about leatherworking and kind of leather in general. I do sketchbook page drops because I design a lot of my own stuff, and kind of the main thing too is they get monthly digital pattern drops. So people who are supporting me monthly, every month, will get a free digital pattern that I have designed.
So they could learn how to do leather by
right, because I really want to support. Sometimes you can get the materials and the tools, but actually starting a project can be really intimidating. And a lot of the things that helped me was wanting a specific thing. And so I like to try to provide that opportunity for people. That's how I got into cosplay a lot of the time, was through people's templates and like having that extra little step to jump into it. And working with Bill and Britt was largely them, they do tutorial videos. And so I really like that spirit of inviting more people in rather than trying to like safeguard secrets for your industry or whatever. I think learning and helping people to find something that they really like is much more worthwhile in my opinion.
So I'm not trying to get a fixed price, but like what's the range of a commission?
It totally depends on the commission, but like on my store page, for example, I have digital patterns for as low as like $5 to as high as like, I have a pack of several different patterns and that's $80. My most expensive item is a backpack that I designed. I don't know. Are we on like camera or are we icons? I don't know if people can see things that I show it. Okay, cool. Hold on.
If you want to show something, go ahead.
So this was a backpack that I designed.
Oh yeah, I saw that on your.
Yeah, this is
that's
my
really cool.
leaf pack. It's
Yeah.
part of my Druid collection. And I designed and made this whole thing from scratch. And so this is the most expensive item that people can buy from my store. It's $450.
Wow.
But it's also completely handmade. All the stitching is done by hand. All the tooling is done by hand. You know, it's all fabric lined and has little pockets on the inside and everything. It holds at least 2 bottles of wine. I checked. But then I also have things like a switch case is like $100, or I have a little dice pouch that I think I have for like 20 or something. So it really varies. It depends on how much work the thing takes, and also just how much physical leather the thing takes, and then also how long it took me to develop the pattern and the design of it. Because pretty much everything in my store is something that I have developed myself from scratch. None of it is based on, someone else's pattern or anything like that. So that takes a lot of time. I think it took me a month or longer to work out this backpack pattern. I made it from like grocery bags and like cut and trimmed and kind of figured it out and everything. But that was like the first major thing I made when I started my business, because I know how to start small, apparently. But yeah, so it really depends. And like leather work is expensive, and it's more expensive if it's handmade, if it's hand stitched versus machine stitched, because that's what takes up so much time.
Right.
Because time is that really critical factor in terms of pricing a project. But yeah, anywhere from, I think the cheapest thing on my store is $5, and the most expensive thing is $450. So it runs the full gamut, and it really depends on what the person wants and how much detail they want, or how much customization they want. People can always come in and be like, hey, I want, this $60 bracer, but make it like pink with rainbows on it. And I'd be like, you got it. Changing colors is much simpler than carving a different design or making a major kind of shape change type thing. I think the armor pieces, I'm making like a collar and some bracers and like a waist piece for my friend, and that was like $300 altogether. But I'm doing this like super detailed thing, and she was kind of like, here, do it. And I was like, okay. So yeah, it unhelpfully, but it really varies just depending on the piece, the complexity, and whether or not it's something I already have a pattern for too.
Okay. I wanted to talk a little bit about, you were also, I guess in college, a singer in a band?
Oh yeah, I did do that. That was a very short stint, but yeah, my friend and I and our other friends started a band. We called it Standpoint Theory because we were super intellectual.
And you're in college, yeah.
Yep, yeah. And it was kind of a metal thing. It was really fun. It was cool. It was my first experience like professionally performing and recording a song. I only recorded 2 songs with them, and then was like, I have a lot of homework, and you guys like are talking about maybe going on tour, and if this like goes somewhere, and I was like, I'm not. I just want to do this for fun. But it was a really fun experience while I was doing it. Totally random. We all loved music, and I have been singing on and off for forever because I started in like middle school. But then I had to kind of choose between choir and art because of how classes worked. So yeah. I ended up pursuing art more so, but I do really like singing. But yeah, no, that was a super fun random little thing that I did. I don't know if they ever put anything on Spotify. I think they are on SoundCloud. So if you look for Standpoint Theory, 2 words, they might be on there.
I actually found one of the songs that featured you on it.
So, oh, nice. Yeah.
So it is out there.
Yeah, you can find it. It's there. You'll know when it's me. It's very obvious.
Yeah,
I'm the one.
Yeah.
I'm the one not doing harsh vocals.
Yeah, yeah. I was like, oh, this is heavy metal then. Okay.
I wish I could do harsh vocals. I haven't figured it out.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that was super fun.
And you talked before about Stormcon that you were the co-director of. How'd you start your own con?
It was something that had existed previously, like prior years to us. It was created by SCAD students and then kind of fell to the wayside when they left and graduated. And my friend Lawrence hosted a meeting at one point because he was interested in bringing Stormcon back because there's no local Savannah convention. which is kind of crazy because it's a huge art city.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, they have a
So
big
the
art college right there. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. And the closest con kind of city, major city that you could go to was Atlanta, which is 3 hours away. And especially being an art town and an art college, and having artist alleys be such a major component of cons, we were like, this, we need a closer con. We should bring this back. And I went because I was vaguely interested. And Lawrence kind of talked about, the con and kind of what he wanted out of it, and was like, I'm really looking for a co-director to help me run this thing. And I had this moment where I was like, if I don't raise my hand right now and do this, it's going to be crazy. Like, it's going to be just a totally different experience. And so I was like, okay, this is the thing I should do. And I did it for 3 years and it was really awesome. But we basically, out of our own pockets, it was 4 students, including myself, we funded this con. We managed to get a hotel ballroom half off because we were very charming the first year, and set up an artist alley, had volunteers, had panels, had local businesses have booths and everything. And we managed to increase our attendance every year by like 200%. I think we started with like 100 something and ended the year at like, I don't know, 500, 600, maybe even 800. I don't remember what the highest number was at that last year, but it was a huge increase. And like, we were able to book a convention center by the 3rd year. It was really cool. We had consistent cosplayers, we had panels and all kinds of stuff. And it was just a really fascinating experience in organizing and communicating. And, we tried to get funding from local places, but because it was just this random student funded thing, nobody wanted to give us money, which is totally fair. And we were like, fine, we'll do it ourselves. We just did a tiny bit of fundraising, threw some of our own money in, and it just worked somehow. I don't know, but
Did they still do it?
No, sadly, all of us were seniors, and so we did it for 3 years, and then all of us graduated and kind of flew off into the nine winds, and we handed it off, and offered to give them kind of the funds that we had raised so that they could kind of keep going, but they wanted to raise stuff themselves, and so we donated what we had left. I think it went to Planned Parenthood. Some of them might have gone to ACLU, and I think one went to like a trans home or something like that. I don't remember off the top of my head, but it should be on the Stormcon page. I think we did a little summary, but yeah, so they ended up just not able to keep it running, which was a really big bummer, but it was really a cool thing to do, and I hope Savannah appreciated it, because I know we really did. It was a fun thing to do.
You mentioned earlier about your Cherokee heritage,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember I happened to catch you had done a podcast. I don't know if you're still doing it or not. You did a podcast for a while about it.
Okay, so my little sister and I wanted to start a podcast. We called it Booger Sisters because in Cherokee culture, a booger is like a kind of a caricature. Sometimes they were not great, like sometimes they were kind of racist, but the premise of them was that they were kind of a caricature that people would take on by wearing a mask, and they would harass the whole community, and then at the end of the day they would be danced and kind of chased away, and it was sort of like a protection against things that were dangerous and a way to sort of do stress relief and just be kind of banishing things that are dangerous and unsafe. Like a lot of times they were carved in the shape of like white settlers and things like that. But so we wanted to create a podcast kind of documenting our experience of decolonizing and learning about our heritage, because we didn't grow up with other Cherokees at all. We grew up on the clear other side of the United States and didn't really feel like we had the resources to connect with that heritage properly until we were in college or later. And we know that that's not uncommon because there's a lot of displacement in Indigenous communities. And so our premise was that we were kind of chasing away our own boogers and like figuring out our own sort of safe space and everything. We recorded and published one episode.
Oh, okay, so I caught the
and
one
then
episode.
and then we recorded like 4 others and then just never edited them because both my sister and I are stupid busy, and we were always like, let's do this thing, it'll be really great, and then we're like, neither of us have time for this. So hopefully at some point it is something I'd like to keep doing because it was really fun to do, and we talked about a lot of interesting topics. and I really want a podcast, but it's just time editing is tough.
We do very little editing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, this pretty much is live.
Yeah, and that was kind of our goal too, but every once in a while we would have a thing where it was like, we need to cut that out, and then you have to go like find it in this hour-long recording, and it was just like, oh my god.
We leave it
so yeah, we just never got around to it. But yeah, and maybe the solution is that we don't edit as much and just kind of put it out there and worry about that later. But yeah, we did record a few more episodes. She's also now in DC, and I'm in the other Washington. So we have time differences and all kinds of stuff that conflict. So it was a little difficult to get it going. But it's definitely something I'd like to pick back up. I think about it a lot because I feel like it's very common for young Indigenous people who grew up separated from their heritage to feel like they are super isolated and they're the only one who doesn't know these things and that they have no connection to their people. And so it was very important to me to create something that said, hey, it's not just you. We're doing this too. It's silly and weird and awkward and upsetting. And you can kind of come on this journey with us while we go through our rediscovery of our heritage, and you can take part in that too. So hopefully I can do that again at some point, because it was really fun to work on, even though on the front end nothing happened. We did record more episodes. We had like a whole plan and everything, but we both loved recording it, but then neither of us wanted to edit. Problem. Maybe we need an editor. Maybe that's the solution.
I think
Maybe
you can find those people out there, but
yeah, I know they're available. It's the funds part that was a problem, I think. So
yeah, that's why
we shall see.
My editor's right here. Our editors.
Yeah.
So part of the reason I wanted to bring it up is we hired you as Paige Camburn, and I believe now you want to be called Paige Redbird.
Yeah, my sort of public-facing name is Paige Redbird. Redbird is my name. I hesitate to call it like an Indian name because it's just my name.
Right.
But that is the name that my grandmother gave me when I was born. And so that's why all my branding has always been Redbird.
Okay.
And if I could change it legally without it being a giant hassle, I would.
Right.
But the process of having to change it everywhere is just the worst. And I don't feel like dealing with it. Also, I don't know when I'm going to get married, but it'll probably be kind of soon, at which point it feels like it would just be doing it all over again. And then, yeah, so I just choose Paige Redbird on all the non-legal fronts is right. How I tend to go by. Yeah,
we went back and updated the credit. We remastered the comic books so that they were a little. The first 5 we were definitely learning what we were doing, and they're wordy and all that. So we kind of went back and
tried to make it better.
Yeah, we couldn't redo the artwork because it's real expensive, but the writing part we could do, and so we went back, and so on the remastered version we changed the credit to be Paige Redbird.
Oh, thank you, I appreciate that. That's great. That's great that you had the opportunity to do that. I need to do that with some of my digital patterns. I want to go back and kind of clean them up a little bit.
We decided
it's hard to find the time to do it though.
we got approached to do this, I guess last year. Do this Kickstarter with Artith Merrick, and they wanted to do the first. We had already done the graphic novel, the first 5 issues, last 2019.
Yeah,
and we were kind of like tired of the first 5 issues. Nothing to do with you, but just the artwork isn't.
It's only because of how often we've been looking at it.
Yeah, and so they wanted to
I
do
know
this,
the feeling.
Yeah, so they wanted to do this again. We're like, okay, maybe we can make these better, And so as we went back and edited pretty much all the dialogue, and didn't change what was going on, but just try to and so we took the opportunity since we decided to call ourselves the SRCC Press, San Ramiro Community College Press.
Nice.
Yeah, and
that's awesome.
Yeah, and we have if people want to follow us, you can enroll at San Ramiro Community College.
Yeah.
That's fun.
So, have you at all followed us since you left us?
I'm embarrassed to say that I have not, but I'm also just terrible at following anybody about anything ever.
Yeah, I get that.
I exist in my little costuming bubble and very rarely look outside of it. But I did see. I feel like Leo or somebody else shared that you were on like Comicsology and a couple other things, which was super exciting. But yeah, no, I haven't. I'm excited to hear updates though.
Okay. Well, I don't think we're actually on Comicsology anymore because they switched to be kind of Kindle.
I wouldn't be surprised if I'm way behind.
Well, they
Comicsology is pronounced Kindle now.
yeah, they sort of became
Oh,
more
cool.
and
We
more
love
Amazon.
that.
And
Great.
I used to have on our website in the campus store, keeping with the theme, were links to every issue where you can buy them. And the links that I had to Comicsology just took you to Comicsology. They no longer took you to our book. And
Oh, weird.
yeah, and I sort of looked at Comicsology, the Amazon version of it, and I couldn't find our book anymore. And I was like, well, thanks for
For letting us know. Yeah, wow.
So we just dropped all the links, and we're not going to be. We'll submit to Kindle because that's easy, but we're not going to worry about Comicsology anymore.
That's also going to be like one less source to remember.
Yeah, we're like on.
I feel that. I totally feel that.
We're on several digital platforms and a couple of print platforms. Nothing that anybody would notice necessarily, but and then we're trying to hopefully that this the idea behind this Kickstarter is to get it translated into French and then sell it in France and I assume Belgium.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah. So we're hoping that works out. But enough about it. So we've so Rachel started on issue 6 and she's been with us ever since.
That's so great. I'm so glad that worked out.
Yeah, it was really good, and she actually did a couple of the covers. I don't know if you remember that, but we were already sort of looking for a replacement, so she did this cover and she did this cover.
That's awesome. I'm looking at the site now, and I'm surprised at how nostalgic I feel, even though I didn't even do that many episodes or issues. I'm like, oh, I remember coloring these guys. Yeah. I remember your specific shirt color and your specific hair color. It's funny the things that you remember randomly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was. So we'll drop us in there every so often. So if you're interested, we could send you. I'll send you digital copies for free.
Oh my gosh! Of course, I'd love to see them.
Okay. Yeah. Just up to 12, whatever's been published. One more. I noticed we asked people. So I assume you haven't been doing a lot of cons in the last couple of years.
I have been trying to stay safe during the COVID nightmare. I went to Emerald City last December. That was kind of my first sort of con since, really, which is kind of nuts, and that was delightful. I miss them a lot. Hello, it's still not dinner time. But yeah, no, I've just kind of been a hermit at home trying to do my part and keep people safe. I went to Emerald City and I'm hoping to go to more. I just bought tickets today to go to Star Wars Celebration in May in Anaheim, and I'm hoping to go to a few more cons this year, but we will see how the pandemic plays out. It's hard to make long-term plans right now.
Yeah. You kind of think, are we over it or not? We went to LA Comic-Con. That was the first thing we'd been to in a couple. We had never been there. It was the first con we'd been to.
We went as.
That's a big one to go to.
Yeah, we went as guests, or as a.
Well, we can
not guests. Sorry.
We paid to go to that, but because we have a comic book, we could theoretically be professionals. So.
Yeah, I meant to say we went as just regular attendees.
And
that was the right word.
And we're hoping to go to Comic-Con again this year, but as attendees, not as professional attendees.
Yeah. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
You guys should see if you can come out to Emerald City.
That's a flight and everything, isn't it?
Yeah, the whole thing.
As much as we're making on the comic book, but maybe if
there's a reason.
What?
There's a reason I didn't go into the comics industry.
Yes. Well, we had a guy on the show, Dontnguyen, who's an artist, and he was the special guest at one of the special guests at LA Comic Con, and he was saying that you should do cons, and the way he makes his money is he does commissions while he's there. I'm like, well, no one's going to ask us to write something for them.
That's true. As a writer, it's a totally different experience.
We thought we could draw stuff for you, but it's our best try.
Yeah, that's true. I always, because we at SCAD, as a sequential artist, you're trained to do every part, so I know how to write, draw, color, ink comics, and I forget that that's not super common in the comics industry. Actually, like, most people will kind of specialize, and that's true. As a comic writer, that's a very different convention experience.
There are some people that are do it all, and I always feel like they could, it's great for them. They could turn something around.
Yeah.
And for us, it's like, okay, we have to talk to Rachel, and we have to get color. Yep. It's a big deal. I noticed in looking you up that you were actually interviewed about COVID.
I was. I also forgot about that. This is really funny. Yeah, I was on my way to get a tattoo, and these people randomly stopped me and were like, "Can we interview you?" I was like, "Okay." I was just minding my business, trying to go get tattooed, and then I was sort of ambushed by these very nice ladies who had a news camera, and I think they were local. They were asking about there was a plan. This is when I lived back in Auburn. I have since moved, thank God. But they were opening up like a new vaccination clinic spot, and they were like, "How do you feel about that? Is this good? How do you feel about the pandemic?" And I was like, "It's bad, and people should get vaccinated." Basically. That's funny. I didn't realize that would pop up. I've never Googled myself. Maybe I should Google myself.
You should. There's a lot of secrets out there.
There's all kinds of information out there.
So we'd like to give everybody a chance to plug their business or what you're doing. So how would people find you, follow you?
I am Redbird_makes on Instagram, and that gives you access to my link tree, which is linked in my bio, which can take you to my Patreon, my Etsy page. I also have an Indigenous cosplayers and makers group on Facebook that is exclusively a space for Indigenous artists and cosplayers. So there's not a lot of Indigenous specific spaces, especially in that kind of corner of making things. But I'm Redbird Trade on Etsy, and you can find me at patreon.com/redbirdmakes. I do have a Facebook and a Twitter. I don't use it very often. Instagram is blatantly my favorite platform. If you want to see stuff that I'm doing, that's probably the best place to check it out. I do take custom commissions. I also sell all kinds of stuff. I also cosplay. I'm currently working on a Mandalorian for Star Wars Celebration, so I also post stuff about that on my Instagram. I sometimes post pictures of my cats when they're not bothering me. She's still got at least 2 hours before dinner time. It's nowhere close. But yeah, so I'm on Instagram, Patreon. My Linktree has links to all those things, and you can get to that through my Twitter bio as well as my Instagram bio. It's Linktree. They do the weird. It's like linktr.ee/redbirdmakes. But yeah.
Okay.
That's where I'm at, and that's what I'm doing.
Okay, great. Well, thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm so sorry I popped in a little later than planned.
That's all right.
If you are watching this on YouTube later and you like this kind of thing, leave a like and consider subscribing and ringing that bell.
Right. So thanks again for being on the show. Until next time, I'm David Hankins.
I'm Paul Hankins.
And you've been on the air with Power Squared.
Bye!